The merciless July sun beat down on Ray Wilkins' weathered face as he guided his horse along the dusty trail, cutting through the Nevada desert. At 58, Ray had spent most of his life working cattle ranches across the Southwest, his skin tanned and creased from decades under the harsh elements. He wasn't what most people pictured when they thought of a cowboy these days. No flashy belt buckle or pristine Stetson, just worn boots, faded jeans, and a reliable old hat that had seen better days. He'd been making his way back to his small ranch after delivering 3 horses to a buyer in Elko County when he noticed something unusual about half a mile off the trail. A vehicle, its windshield reflecting the brutal midday sun. Out here, 30 miles from the nearest town, an abandoned vehicle usually meant trouble. "Come on, Dusty," he murmured to his chestnut quarter horse, steering him toward the glinting metal. As they approached, Ray made out a silver sedan, its front end crumpled against a large boulder. The driver's door hung open. Ray dismounted cautiously, his boots raising small clouds of dust as they hit the ground. "Hello," he called out, one hand resting near the knife on his belt, the only protection he carried. No answer came, just the soft whistle of wind through the sagebrush. The car was empty, the airbags deployed, the dashboard scattered with broken glass. A child's backpack lay on the back seat, emblazoned with cartoon dinosaurs. Ray's stomach tightened. He scanned the surrounding area, shielding his eyes against the glare. That's when he saw them. 2 figures huddled in the shadow of a large rock formation about 50 yards away. He approached slowly, leading Dusty by the reins. "I'm not looking for trouble," he called out. "Just want to help if I can." A man looked up, desperation etched across his face. Next to him lay a girl, no more than 12, her leg bent at an unnatural angle, her face pale despite the heat. "Thank God," the man croaked, his voice dry from thirst. "We've been out here since last night. The GPS took us off the main highway, said it was a shortcut. I lost control on the gravel." He gestured weakly toward his daughter. "Lily's leg is broken, maybe worse. She hit her head pretty bad, too." Ray knelt beside them, offering his canteen. The man, who introduced himself as Daniel Harrison, explained they'd been traveling from San Francisco to visit family in Salt Lake City. They'd planned to stop in Reno, but Daniel had wanted to make up time after a late start. "My phone's dead," Daniel said, "and there's no signal out here anyway." Ray examined Lily with gentle hands. Her breathing was shallow, her skin clammy despite the desert heat. The head wound worried him most. A gash above her left temple had stopped bleeding, but left her drifting in and out of consciousness. She needed medical attention, fast. "Nearest hospital's in Winnemucca, about 50 miles north," Ray said, calculating quickly. "My ranch is closer, 20 miles east, but there's nothing there but basic first aid. No landline either." Daniel's face crumpled. "She's getting worse. I tried carrying her toward the highway, but it was too far. I couldn't." "Save your strength," Ray interrupted. "I know this desert. There's a ranger station about 15 miles northeast of here. They'll have a radio, medical supplies." Ray made his decision quickly. "I'll take her on Dusty. He's strong enough to carry double, and I can keep her stable." He pulled a faded map from his saddlebag, traced a route with his finger, and handed it to Daniel. "Follow this wash east. It'll lead you to an old mining road. That'll take you straight to my place. Water pumps out back, food in the pantry. Rest up and wait for us there." Daniel protested weakly, but Ray silenced him with a raised hand. "You're exhausted and dehydrated. You'll only slow us down, and she doesn't have that kind of time." Ray fashioned a makeshift splint for Lily's leg using branches and strips torn from his spare shirt. With careful movements, he lifted the unconscious girl onto his saddle, then mounted behind her, cradling her against his chest. "I'll take good care of her," he promised Daniel, whose eyes brimmed with tears. As the sun began its descent toward the western horizon, Ray nudged Dusty forward, beginning a journey that would test his knowledge of the land and his own endurance. He could feel Lily's faint heartbeat against his arm. Time was running out. Twilight settled over the desert as Ray guided Dusty along a narrow path between towering rock formations. The temperature was dropping rapidly, a blessing after the scorching day, but it brought its own dangers. Ray had draped his jacket over Lily, who drifted in and out of consciousness, occasionally mumbling incoherently. Her forehead burned against his arm, fever taking hold. "Just hold on, little one," he murmured, though he wasn't sure she could hear him. "We'll get you fixed up." The truth was less certain. Ray had chosen the most direct route to the ranger station, but it meant traversing rougher terrain than he'd initially planned. Dusty picked his way carefully through loose shale, his ears flicking back and forth, alert to the sounds of the desert night coming alive around them. Ray had ridden these lands for decades, but always in daylight, always with supplies and preparation. Tonight, with a critically injured child in his arms and limited resources, the familiar landscape seemed suddenly treacherous. He'd brought only a single canteen of water, a small first aid kit, his knife, and a flashlight with uncertain battery life. As darkness enveloped them completely, Ray switched on the flashlight, using it sparingly to conserve the batteries. The beam caught Lily's face, ghostly pale in the harsh light. Her breathing had become more labored, each intake a visible struggle. The head wound worried him most. He'd seen enough injuries in his life to know that the calm unconsciousness she'd slipped into wasn't a mercy, but a warning. "Stay with me, Lily," he said firmly, as if his words alone could tether her to this world. Around midnight, they reached a dried creek bed that Ray knew would lead them directly to the ranger station. The going was easier here, but Dusty was tiring, his pace slowing despite Ray's gentle encouragement. They'd been traveling for nearly 6 hours, and the horse needed rest. Ray reluctantly decided to stop briefly. He dismounted carefully, cradling Lily as he laid her on a smooth patch of ground. He wet his bandana with precious water and wiped her feverish face, checking her pulse, rapid and thready. The splint on her leg had held, but the limb was swollen dramatically now, skin stretched tight and discolored even in the dim light. "Just a quick breather, Dusty," he told the horse, who drank gratefully from Ray's cupped hands. 10 minutes, then we push on." Ray looked up at the vast canopy of stars. Out here, away from any city lights, the Milky Way sprawled across the sky in breathtaking clarity. He'd always found comfort in these stars, their ancient light a reminder of how small human troubles were in the grand scheme. Tonight, they offered no solace. A child's life hung in the balance, and the universe continued its indifferent spin. A low, mournful howl echoed across the desert, coyotes, hunting in the night. Dusty snorted nervously, pawing at the ground. Ray tensed, his hand moving to his knife. Coyotes rarely attacked humans, but a horse and injured child might prove tempting to a hungry pack. "Time to move," Ray decided, mounting quickly and situating Lily securely against him. They pressed on through the darkness, Ray fighting exhaustion as the hours passed. The terrain grew increasingly rugged as they approached a series of low hills that separated them from their destination. Ray knew there was a pass, but finding it in the dark would be challenging. Dawn was still hours away when the flashlight finally died. Ray cursed softly, tucking the useless tool into his saddlebag. They would have to rely on starlight and Dusty's sure-footedness now. The horse seemed to sense the urgency, picking up his pace slightly despite his fatigue. Lily stirred against Ray's chest, her small hand clutching weakly at his shirt. "Dad," she whispered, her voice barely audible. "Your dad's safe," Ray assured her. "I'm Ray. I'm taking you to get help." "It hurts," she whimpered. "Everything hurts." "I know, sweetheart. We're almost there." It was a lie. They still had at least 3 hours of hard riding ahead, but he couldn't bear to tell her the truth. "Am I going to die?" The question, asked with such simple directness, pierced Ray's heart. "Not on my watch," he promised firmly. "I've got you." She seemed to accept this, falling silent again as they continued their journey. Ray felt her growing heavier in his arms as she slipped back into unconsciousness. The night stretched endlessly before them, each minute critical, each mile hard won against the unforgiving landscape. As they crested a small rise, Ray caught sight of something that made his blood run cold. Distant headlights, moving along the horizon where no road should be. Someone else was out here in the desert night, and something told Ray they weren't rangers coming to the rescue. The first hint of dawn painted the eastern sky a pale violet as Ray guided Dusty down the slope of a shallow ravine. He'd been watching those mysterious headlights for over an hour now, changing direction periodically, but generally moving in a search pattern. Whoever they were, they seemed to be looking for something, or someone. His instincts, honed by decades in these remote landscapes, screamed danger. This wasn't search and rescue. Their movements were too erratic, too predatory. Ray had deliberately kept to lower ground, using the terrain to shield them from view, but it had cost them valuable time. The ranger station was still roughly 5 miles away, across increasingly exposed territory. Lily's condition had deteriorated further. Her breathing came in short, irregular gasps, and her skin had taken on a gray pallor that frightened Ray more than he cared to admit. The makeshift splint on her leg needed adjustment, but he dared not stop again, not with those vehicles prowling the desert. As they picked their way through a field of loose rocks, Dusty suddenly stumbled, nearly throwing them both. The exhausted horse recovered quickly, but Ray felt a stab of guilt. Dusty had been going for hours, without proper rest or water. The animal's sides heaved with exertion, foam flecking his mouth. "Just a little further, old friend," Ray encouraged, patting the horse's sweaty neck. "You can do this." They emerged from the ravine into a flat expanse of scrubland. The ranger station would be visible from here in full daylight, but in the dim pre-dawn, Ray could make out only vague shapes on the horizon. He oriented himself, using a distinctive rock formation to the north, confirming they were on the right track. The sound reached him before he saw them, engines, growing louder. Ray turned in the saddle to see 2 ATVs cresting a hill behind them, maybe half a mile back. Dawn had betrayed their position. "Damn it," he muttered, spurring Dusty forward. The horse responded valiantly, breaking into a tired gallop across the open ground. Ray hunched over Lily, shielding her as best he could, his mind racing. Who were these people? What did they want? The ATVs gained ground quickly, their powerful engines no match for Dusty's exhausted pace. Ray could now make out 2 riders on each vehicle, all dressed in dark clothing. One raised what looked like a rifle, and a shot cracked across the desert, the bullet whistling past Ray's ear. "Hold on, Lily," Ray shouted, though she remained unconscious. He veered Dusty toward a cluster of large boulders, the only cover in sight. Another shot rang out, this one kicking up dust at Dusty's hooves. They reached the boulders, just as the sun breached the horizon, bathing the desert in golden light. Ray dismounted quickly, pulling Lily down with him and propping her against a rock. Dusty stood nearby, sides heaving, head lowered in exhaustion. The ATVs circled at a distance, their riders conferring. Ray pulled his knife, an inadequate defense against firearms, but his only option. He counted 4 men, all armed, their faces obscured by bandanas. "What do you want?" Ray shouted across the distance. One of the men gunned his ATV forward, stopping about 50 yards away. "Give us the girl," he called back, his voice carrying easily in the still morning air. "This doesn't concern you, old man." Ray's mind worked furiously. Why would anyone be hunting a 12-year-old girl? Then it clicked. Daniel Harrison hadn't been entirely truthful. This wasn't a simple family trip gone wrong. "She needs medical attention," Ray replied, playing for time. "She's dying." "That's not your problem," the man answered coldly. "Last chance to walk away." Ray looked down at Lily, her small face contorted with pain even in unconsciousness. Whatever trouble her father was in, this child was innocent. "Not going to happen," he called back, his voice steady despite the fear churning in his gut. The man shrugged and raised his rifle again. Ray tensed, preparing for the worst, when the unmistakable wail of a siren cut through the morning air. A green and white Ranger vehicle appeared on the ridge to the east, its lights flashing. The ATV riders hesitated, then quickly turned their vehicles around, speeding away across the desert floor. Within moments, they had disappeared beyond a distant rise. Ray sagged against the boulder, relief washing over him. The Ranger truck bounced across the uneven ground toward them, and he could see 2 uniformed officers inside. Help had arrived, seemingly just in time. As the Rangers pulled up, Ray gathered Lily in his arms one last time. "We made it, little one," he whispered. "You're going to be okay now." But even as the Rangers rushed toward them, medical kits in hand, Ray knew this ordeal was far from over. The mysterious pursuers would be back, and next time, the Rangers might not arrive in time. Whatever secret Daniel Harrison was keeping had nearly cost his daughter's life, and the danger clearly hadn't passed. For now, though, Lily would get the help she desperately needed, and Ray would get answers, one way or another. The antiseptic smell of the Winnemucca General Hospital surrounded Ray as he sat in the hallway outside Lily's room. He'd refused to leave even after the Rangers had airlifted the girl from the station to the hospital. His clothes were dust-covered, his eyes red-rimmed from exhaustion, but he remained vigilant, watching everyone who passed with wary attention. The two park rangers, James Blackwood and Teresa Cortez, stood nearby, conferring in low voices. They'd been unsettled by Ray's account of the armed pursuers, immediately reporting it to the county sheriff. So far, patrols had found no sign of the men on ATVs. "Mr. Wilkins?" A doctor emerged from Lily's room, clipboard in hand. Her name tag identified her as Dr. Mitchell. She stabilized. The head injury caused some swelling, but the CT scan shows no permanent damage. Her leg required surgical pins, and she's dehydrated, but she's young and strong. She'll recover. Ray nodded, relief washing over his weathered features. "Thank you, document. Has she said anything?" "She's been asking for her father," Dr. Mitchell replied. "And for someone named Ray. I assume that's you." "It is. Her father should be at my ranch by now. The Rangers sent a deputy to pick him up." Dr. Mitchell glanced at her watch. "They should have been here an hour ago." A cold feeling settled in Ray's stomach. Before he could respond, Ranger Cortez approached, her expression grim. "We just got word from Deputy Rodriguez. Your ranch was empty, Mr. Wilkins. No sign of Daniel Harrison." Ray stood up, ignoring the protests of his aching muscles. "That doesn't make sense." He had the map. "It's not complicated terrain." "We're organizing a search," Blackwood assured him. "But given what happened with you and Lily, we're proceeding cautiously." A nurse appeared at the door to Lily's room. "She's awake and asking for visitors." Ray entered the hospital room, his hat in his hands. Lily lay small and fragile against the white sheets, and four in her arm, her leg elevated in a cast, a bandage wrapped around her head. Her eyes, startlingly blue, widened at the sight of him. "You're Ray," she said softly. "You carried me through the desert." He settled into the chair beside her bed. "That's right. How are you feeling, little one?" "Better. Where's my dad?" Ray exchanged a glance with Ranger Cortez, who had followed him in. "We're looking for him," he said carefully. "Lily, can you tell us why those men were chasing you?" Lily's eyes filled with tears. "Dad said not to talk about it. He said it would put people in danger." "You're safe now," Cortez assured her, her voice gentle but firm. "But we need to know what's happening, so we can help your father too." Lily hesitated, then reached for the water cup on her bedside table. Ray handed it to her, and she took a small sip before speaking. "Dad works for a tech company in San Francisco. He's a programmer." Her voice was stronger now. 3 weeks ago, he found something bad in the company's new security system. He said it had a backdoor. I don't know what that means exactly, but he said it would let people steal information from anyone who used their software. Ray nodded encouragingly, though the technical details meant little to him. When he reported it to his boss, they told him to keep quiet about it. They offered him money. Lily's voice dropped to a whisper. But then Dad found emails. They were selling the backdoor to some bad people. On purpose. Cortez leaned forward. "Did your father take evidence of this?" Lily nodded. "He downloaded everything. That's why we were running. He was going to meet a journalist in Salt Lake City." Her fingers twisted in the hospital blanket. "The men who came to our apartment had guns. We barely got out. Dad said they were contractors, people the company hired to get the evidence back." The pieces fell into place for Ray. Daniel Harrison wasn't just a father who'd taken a wrong turn. He was a whistleblower on the run from corporate mercenaries. "Do you know where your father would have kept this evidence?" Ray asked. "He had a flash drive. He always kept it in his pocket. Lily's face crumpled. You think something happened to him, don't you? Before Ray could answer, Sheriff Mark Daniels appeared at the door, his expression somber. We need to talk, he said to the adults. Now, in the hallway, the sheriff didn't waste time. A hiker found a man matching Harrison's description about 5 miles east of your ranch, Wilkins. He'd been attacked, beaten pretty badly. Medevac is bringing him in now. Is he alive? Ray demanded. Barely. And there's something else. The hiker reported seeing several men loading equipment into black SUVs nearby. By the time my deputies arrived, they were gone. The sheriff lowered his voice. We found tire tracks matching ATVs being loaded onto larger vehicles. Ray's jaw tightened. They're not giving up. No, the sheriff agreed. And if what the girl says is true, they won't. That flash drive is worth millions to the right people, and worth even more to keep quiet. Ray glanced back toward Lily's room, where she lay alone and vulnerable. Then we'd better make sure they don't get either one. As night fell over Winnemucca General Hospital, an uneasy quiet settled on the third-floor pediatric wing. Sheriff Daniels had stationed 2 deputies outside Lily's room, but Ray remained inside, a self-appointed guardian unwilling to leave her side. Daniel Harrison lay in intensive care 2 floors below, still unconscious, his prognosis uncertain. Ray stood at the window, watching the parking lot below. His body ached for rest, but his mind remained alert, processing everything he'd learned over the past 24 hours. The flash drive containing evidence of corporate espionage hadn't been found on Daniel's person. Either the attackers had taken it, or Daniel had hidden it somewhere along his journey to Ray's ranch. You should sleep, Lily said from her bed. Despite the trauma she'd endured, the girl showed remarkable resilience, her eyes clear and watchful. Ray turned from the window with a small smile. I've gone longer without sleep. How's the pain? Better since the last medicine. She studied him carefully. You don't have to stay, you know. Those policemen are outside. I know. Ray settled into the chair beside her bed. But I made your father a promise that I'd take care of you. I aim to keep it. Lily's expression softened. Why did you help us? You could have just called for help and left. The question caught Ray off guard. He considered it carefully before answering. Out in the desert, we look after each other. It's just how it is. He paused. And I know what it's like to be running from something that seems bigger than yourself. Were you ever in trouble like us? Ray chuckled softly. Different kind of trouble. Long time ago, I lost my wife to cancer. Afterward, I couldn't face our life without her. So I ran. Took whatever work I could find on ranches across 3 states. Never staying anywhere long. His voice grew distant with memory. Took me years to realize you can't outrun grief. What made you stop running? That old ranch of mine belonged to my uncle. When he passed, he left it to me. Figured it was time to put down roots again. Ray shrugged. Now I can't imagine being anywhere else. Their conversation was interrupted by a soft knock. Dr. Mitchell entered, accompanied by Sheriff Daniels. There's been a development, the sheriff said without preamble. We've received credible information that a team of men is planning to breach the hospital tonight. We're moving both you and your father to a secure location. Lily's eyes widened in fear. How did they find us? Hospitals report all trauma cases, Dr. Mitchell explained gently. It's standard procedure. We tried using pseudonyms in the system, but someone was watching for it, Ray finished grimly. Sheriff Daniels nodded. The FBI has been notified. They're sending agents, but they won't arrive until morning. In the meantime, we're evacuating you to a safe house about 30 miles outside town. What about my dad? Lily asked, her voice small. He's being prepared for transport now, Dr. Mitchell assured her. His condition is stable enough for the move. The next hour passed in a flurry of activity. Hospital staff disconnected Lily's monitors in 4, replacing it with a portable unit. 2 paramedics arrived with a gurney, and soon they were moving swiftly through the hospital's back corridors toward the loading dock, where an unmarked ambulance waited. Ray walked alongside Lily's gurney, his hand resting reassuringly on her arm. Sheriff Daniels led the way, his hand never far from his holstered weapon. A second medical team followed with Daniel Harrison, still unconscious on his stretcher. They had just reached the ambulance when the lights throughout the hospital flickered and died. Emergency generators kicked in seconds later, casting the loading dock in dim, shadowy light. "That's not a coincidence," Sheriff Daniels muttered, drawing his weapon. "Get them loaded now." The paramedics rushed to secure Lily in the ambulance. Ray climbed in beside her, his heart pounding as he heard the first shouts from inside the hospital. "Sheriff!" A deputy burst through the doors, breathing hard. 4 armed men entered through the ER. "They've disabled the security cameras." Daniels made a split-second decision. "Martinez, you drive the ambulance. Reynolds, take Harrison in the second vehicle. Different routes, same destination. Go." As the paramedics slammed the ambulance door shut, Ray caught a glimpse of figures rushing onto the loading dock, weapons raised. Gunfire erupted, the sharp cracks echoing in the confined space. The ambulance lurched forward, tires squealing as Martinez accelerated away from the hospital. Lily clutched Ray's hand, her face pale with terror. In the chaos, Ray realized something that sent a chill through him. Daniel Harrison hadn't been loaded into the second ambulance yet when the shooting started. As they sped through the darkened streets of Winnemucca, Ray could only hope that Sheriff Daniels had managed to protect Daniel from the attackers. Because if these corporate mercenaries got what they wanted, either the flash drive or Daniel's silence, Lily would never truly be safe again. The ambulance raced into the Nevada night, carrying its precious cargo toward an uncertain sanctuary, while behind them, the outcome of the hospital standoff remained unknown.